Hello, children. Played, I think 3 games this morning. Won my first one and thought, hey, this is good. Ratings creeping up. And then I went on to lose 2. And I'm going to share this game with you because this one really stung. And it's interesting because like immediately after the game, I knew the move that I thought turned the game. I felt like I had an advantage for a lot of the game, and it proves that you can see from the graph that I did. And this comes down to some odd choices of moves when I was in a very strong position. So this is something that I'm thinking that I need to work on, which is failing to add extra bastard when I've got my opponent on the ropes, right? So first of all, what I want to do is I want to go through the game and I'll highlight the move that I think was the big nasty. And then we'll see what else we can see. Now, I have taken a brief look at the analysis already. Then we'll look at the analysis and try and figure out what those growth points are. You know, what do I need to do in order to progress and become a better player? Because this guy's just under 1700, right? And that would be a good scalp. So we have a Scandi, takes, and Scandinavian Modern, which is what I'm playing against d4. And out comes the knight. Knight comes out, we take back the pawn, and here he doesn't recapture. The most common move that I find is knight takes knight, and then queen takes knight. And you have something like a more conventional Scandinavian, but these 2 knights are missing. So white doesn't have this move bringing out the knight here when the queen is on there kicking it with tempo. So anyway, d4 is played, and now I decide bringing out my knight. Doesn't really make sense to bring out the bishops quite yet. I probably want to play e6 at some point, but I want to get my bishop out first. I just thought let's bring out the knight. Let's get some control of the center. Knights before bishops. I'm really trying to stick to more principled play at the moment. And then he trades off. And now I'm thinking, yeah, okay. But now look, I've got 2 pieces out on the board. You've got none. I've got an overwhelm on this pawn, because it's defended only once. Plus, this bishop is tied to the defense of the g2 pawn, because my queen can take. I mean, there is this kind of idea that the bishop could come here with this nice kind of triangular defensive structure where the rook defends the knight, knight defends bishop, bishop defends the rook, x-raying through the queen, but queen can just drop back out of there. You lose a pawn and your king side's buggered. So white now plays bishop out to e3 to defend the pawn, and that's absolutely fine. So now I bring out my bishop, and now I'm getting ready to castle queenside, which is principled. Why? Because we have no d-pawn. So I will very often castle queenside in these Scandinavian lines because it comes with the advantage of putting the rook straight in the center, right? Whenever you castle kingside, the rook comes to the f1 or f8 square, where it's normally stuck behind a pawn. Here, you get a jump on your opponent because you've already got your rook onto not only a central file, but in this case, a semi-open central file, adding pressure to this chap here. So, for example, if I was to castle on the next turn, now I've got 1, 2, and a rook looking at that pawn. Okay. So now my opponent throws out c4, and I wasn't entirely convinced with this move. He's got no kingside development yet, so he's not going to castle in a hurry. So I thought, let's throw in queen a5 check. My queen has options here. I'm expecting the bishop to come back and block, but the queen blocks here. And I decide to trade off queens because the bishop is the only defender of this pawn. Or maybe not. Maybe I missed the pawn. Wow, well, I saw it here. Okay, so now I decide to castle, but now he's got d5, right? Surely he's going to be... Okay, he's playing d5, save his pawn. But still now, these pawns are starting to look a little overextended. He can probably push b3 at some point. But he's way behind in development, so I'm feeling quite comfortable now. All I need to do, I'm 2 moves away from connecting my rooks, which is another way of thinking about development. And I think g6, bishop g7, looking at these 2 pieces would make a lot of sense. Anyway, I've got to do something with my knight, so I centralise my knight onto e5. Why not? He now throws out the f pawn. Obviously I can't take here, so the knight actually comes in with check, defended by the bish. Decent move. And again, if he trades off, which he does, you know, where's his development? And look at his pawn structure. It's not nice. You know, these are not healthy pawns out in the middle. And yeah, all my pawns are still at home. But you know what? They're pretty solid there. This one's undefended. This one's undefended. But that's relatively easily resolved. Okay, he builds his pawn chain. So now he has a nice light square pawn chain. But my bishop still has some scope. So, but this does benefit his bishop more, it has to be said. Okay. However, also, another imbalance in black's favour, I've still got the bishop pair, and he's down to 1. He's got a knight that's still in the box. So now I push e6, just thinking, okay, principles. White hasn't castled. I have. Let's open up the centre. Even if he takes, I could even play rook to there, and the pawn can't take again. I could capture with a rook with check, right? He doesn't take, so I take, and he doesn't recapture here. He comes in with a fork on the bishop and f7. There's really only one way out of this. I drop my bishop back to g6 and give him the option of trading the knight for the bishop, which he does. And now, how do I recapture? H pawn or f pawn? I recapture with f on the principle that his king is here, and I want to open up lines towards the king, right? And that's kind of important. Now he takes the pawn, I recapture with a rook, and he castles. He long castles, putting his king into a whole bunch of space here, also opening up a potential check, which is in fact what I do. I throw in the check. It gets my bishop off of the back rank. It gives my rook some scope and flexibility, and it puts, you know, the onus on my opponent to have to do something. And now I play rook hd8. And this was a mistake, according to the engine analysis. Now, why is it a mistake? What have I already said about securing my advantage? Okay, so at this point, I'm up a pawn. I've got a bishop, he's got a bishop, we've both got, you know, rooks. I do have double pawns here, right? The strength in black's favour right now is my king is safe. White's king is not very safe. White's king can't go here or here. And these pawns are not brilliant, right? He's got now these light square pawns. I've got rid of my light square bishop. Well, he did it for me. Thank you very much. And now I still have a dark square bishop that can quite happily navigate these pawns. So why rook d8? I'm putting a second attacker on here, but it's already defended twice. I can't really put a third attack. If I put my bishop there, I just lose my bishop. Right? If I play bishop here, he takes it, and if we trade off rooks, king takes, you know, king takes the rook, and I'm just losing. So there's nothing in that move at all. That was a thoughtless, mindless move, but it's not the worst move, I don't think. The computer said that makes all the difference. Excuse me, the computer said rook e8, occupy the open file, principal play. Anyway, let's continue. So we have bishop c3, and now our rooks are facing off. And now I'm thinking, okay, right, my opponent's nearly 1700. He's quite a bit higher rated than me. How do I feel about an endgame from this position? And that's a very, very important question to ask when you get towards going into, you know, the final throws. Do I have a winnable position now? So the way I'm thinking is these 3 pawns can probably defend these 3 pawns, right? If this guy ever goes forward, it gets taken, blah, blah, blah. And on this side, it's 2 on 3. So I think that I can do it. Now, there is an issue here. Why did he make that move? Well, he's looking at this pawn. And there is zero reason to give up that pawn. Now, there's actually 2 ways to defend it. The way I played, I think, was bishop back to f8. No, in fact, before that, so I spotted it. See, rook here doesn't really work because he can trade rooks. Oh, then this rook's defending it, I guess. But you really don't want to be using your most valuable pieces to defend lowly pawns. You want to defend what needs to be defended in the cheapest possible way. So don't be using a queen to defend a pawn. Don't be using a rook to defend a pawn if there's any other way of defending it. So here I trade off some rooks and the king recaptures, and then I drop my bishop back to there. Okay, now we move towards the ending. Now here you've got to fancy black a bit. I'm up a pawn at the end of the day. However, I have this weakness. I have this pawn, and because it's doubled and the guy in front of it, well, it's got a pawn in front of it, it can't move to a light-coloured square. So maybe what I need to be thinking about doing actually is pushing these pawns, maybe trading off. I don't know, but then I still end up with a pawn in front of it. So, you know, this is why doubled pawns can be a weakness, right? Because now I'm kind of hampered here. I would like to maybe to put my bishop here and just eliminate this threat, whatever. Either he has to come off of this diagonal, or he trades off and I recapture and we should be fine, right? But I managed to screw up this ending. His king comes in, my king comes in. So what's my king doing? My king is heading for here so it can defend this pawn, to free up this guy. Because this guy's high-speed, long-range bishop and can, you know, it's a lot more flexible. King comes to f7, pawn comes forwards, bishop d6, and I always like to do this in endings. Put my bishop in front of a pawn where it's defending the pawn's defending the bishop. We have a rook solid position. And then these pawns can come up here and nothing can touch this side of the board, right? If these pawns start stepping forward, they just get snapped off, right? And then I should have a passed pawn at the end of the day with this guy. And still I managed to bugger it up, so b6. He plays this. Now, I don't want to allow ideas because if he comes here and takes, and then, I don't know. So I push a5, right? This is the exact structure that we talked about. Everything's solid. His bishop now comes back and stops looking at the g7 pawn. And now I push c5, and this is a move, right? This is the key moment. This is the one this is the reason why I made this video. Because I knew in my heart when I made this move that I was playing this move because I couldn't think of anything else to do. Right? I blinked. I knew I had a great rock solid structure here. And this is, I don't know, it's almost like kind of showing off. It's almost like saying to my opponent, I think I've won this. Now I can mess up my structure, right? When what I should do is add extra bastard. This is the time when you go to your opponent. Come on, what are you going to do? What have you got? White? You know? With this move that he just played, it's a kind of a nothing move. And then I completely arse up my entire position. Now, this pawn is completely undefended, right? This king is 1, 2, 3 steps away from capturing that pawn. Can my bishop defend the pawn? No, it can't, right? My bishop can come here and here, okay? So let's see how it ends. I'll show you how it ends now. Because my opponent, like again, is almost 100 points high rated and is just stronger in the end game. But this is the move where at the end of the game I just went, oh, I should not have done that. I should not have done that. You know? Okay, in comes the king. Powerful piece. Now, the only place my bishop can come is here. Sorry, is here to defend the pawn. Maybe defended by my king, but then how does my king defend that from this bishop? And I'm in a bugger's muddle already. King comes in, bishop goes there. Attacks bishop. Bishop retreats. Now, what I was worried about here was he'd just go back and we'd end up with a draw by repetition. But in actual fact, I think it's a bang equal position here if not white slightly better already. He puts his bishop back there anyway, staring at my pawn. Okay. So I decide to think about trade-off bishops. He doesn't even trade off bishops, he goes there. And now I'm locked up on this side of the board, and guess what? My king is on the outside, right? You know, his king has the inside edge. His king is coming round the final bend of the race, right? And my king is on the outside and can't get round, you know? And it just goes all Pete Tong from this point. And here, I'm just in a position where I really don't want to move. It's his Zugzwang, right? I come here, his king comes there, and now I can't even return to c6. So I'm screwed. I am royally screwed, and here I resign. From a position where I was a pawn up, I'm suddenly a pawn down, and he has a perfectly safe pass pawn that is on its way to victory. So, a couple of things to look at. And, you know, white is just completely won. Let's go through and let's identify the biggest mistakes, okay? So, this is the last book move, is it? Oh no, takes, and then that's okay. And that's good. There was a better move. Okay, now I thought about that. I thought about trading knights and messing up his pawns. Okay, I'll try and remember that one in future. But I thought, you know, maybe it'd be alright. Yeah, at least he's got a pawn structure in the centre. I don't know, but okay. So, knight takes knight, queen takes, obviously it's the only move. Bishop out here. Bishop there is best, that's good. And that's okay. That's a mistake. There was a better way to move away, which was... okay. So queen a5 check puts white +1. Queen e4, marginal edge to black. Curious. Okay. Anyway, so queen d2 is a blunder. This misses an opportunity to win a tempo by threatening a high-value piece. So what's it saying? b4? Okay, bishop back. All right, and then, you see, because of these two pawns here, my queen can't go to any of these squares. So I think I'm forced back to there now. Oh no. So this is saying, okay, bishop d2 is a blunder. Bishop d2 is best. There. Queen is forced there. Wow. Yeah. And you can see I'm just like walking backwards here. Anyway, so queen 2 there, then that's a blunder. Okay, because he should have done the other move. That's inaccurate. Better move was knight in. Okay. Oh yeah, because look, my knight could have gone in here, protected by the bishop. Nice one. Okay. There, bishop takes is a blunder, because I should have taken the stupid pawn. I don't know what went on, I missed that. Whoa, ridiculous. Okay, that's a mistake, because I should have took the pawn, obviously, and then threatened a fork. Because I was sleeping. I was probably one of those times when you just focus on rows 1 through 4, and you just ignore what your opponent just did, because that was a mistake. So I guess the computer's saying you should have recaptured with a king. No, wrong one. Bishop d2 is a blunder. Best move was, yeah, king takes. King takes, and actually, yeah, I'm still slightly up, but his pawn's still protected. So I castle, which is stupid because I missed the pawn. Best, good. Best move, good, like that. Trade, okay. And here, at this point in time, I'm minus 1.6, so this is good for black. I'm threatening this pawn. His pawns are in a mess. He's way behind in development. That's inaccurate. Best move was, what, rook c1? Okay, it likes this, that's good. And that's a mistake. Leads to losing material. How does it lead to losing material? Takes. Yeah, this is a free pawn, it's attacked twice. Best. Knight e5 is best. Bishop back there is excellent. There was an even better move. What was that? Pin the knight. Come on, Hunty. Basic tactics. Okay, so knight takes. That's excellent. Is A takes better? H takes? H takes is better. I guess just, reducing the gap between my pawn islands is the idea. That then we have these hot gates here. And maybe that's going to be stronger in the endgame. Now, there's something I ought to think about. Okay, so I take with F, recapture the pawn, and I'm -4 now. -4. Even though I'm only up 1 pawn and they're doubled, right? Because I have a safe king. The board is open, there's lots of open lines. These rooks are not yet in the game at all. Now it's time to strike. Now that's inaccurate, doesn't like that. That's actually the best move, cool. And I'm now -5, now -5.4. And then look, rook hd8 is a mistake. I go from -5.4 to -2. Rook e8 is the only good move, and I missed it. Should have occupied the open file and then just started to move forward and squeeze my opponent. Push this, maybe get rid of this at some point, don't know. Okay, so let's now, that's okay. That's all right. That's the only move. Best move here. Okay, a counterattack on that one. So here we would probably then have played g3. And then I drop back. I don't know how that's better. It's not, it's marginal differences anyway. So bishop f8. He does this. This is best. And I'm still in a winning position with my extra pawn. Okay? And that's inaccurate. That's okay. That's a mistake, this one. That's interesting. Because I guess the other thing that you have to look at is, look, a row of pawns is inaccessible by a king. A king cannot approach a row of pawns from the front. So this king can't go to any of these squares on the 6th rank at all. The king is tied to the defense of this. If this moves forwards, I snap it off. Right, and he's got split pawns. So this is where you don't blink, Hunty. So that's a mistake. I'm still -0.6. Bishop e7 was best here. He wants me to play the bishop there, just preventing this pawn from going forward. Okay, cool. Now these are these kind of key moments where games do turn, and it's very easy when you're going through the analysis just to skip over it. But my bishop there was on a defended square, which is a thing I like, and I said I liked. It's preventing this pawn from advancing. It's attacking that one, so the king's tied to defending it. But yet, this move was best. It's still defended by the king, actually. So this is just a case where I almost just need to go like this and say to my opponent, come on, what have you, bring it. But that's a mistake. That's best. That's inaccurate. Whoa. Okay, so it really wants me to move my pawns up in a wall rather than build this chain that I was so proud of. Interesting. Okay, but I do that. And then, look, blunder. And suddenly white is plus 2.3. Suddenly white is in a winning position. Why? Because the king can just dive straight in there. And this, I just blinked. Right, this is actually a drawn position. But really, this is what I need to learn. So bear with me, right? Because this stuff matters. Putting my pawns like this was not a strength. The computer wanted me to keep my pawns in a wall. Right. It's just something I need to remember, right? Interesting stuff. But you can see how in just a few moves, or really one sloppy move here, I go from I have a chance of winning the game to I have no chance of winning the game. And why did I blink? Why I blinked was because I thought that I had an edge, and it's almost like I'm wanting to bluff. Almost like I'm wanting to say to my opponent, I've got this now, blah, blah, blah. And there was absolutely zero need to do that. I could have kept these all there until Kingdom Come. This pawn's going nowhere. The minute this pawn goes forwards, it gets taken off. The minute this pawn goes forwards, it gets taken off. These two are friends for life, right? And I've got the last pawn on that side of the board. And these three and the king can probably handle these. So, there was no reason to try and make something happen when I didn't have to make anything happen. I had a slight edge. And with this move, I knew when I played it that I'd weakened my position. And I didn't take the time to visualize what was going to happen if I played that move. I just thought something has to happen. I've even still got 7 minutes on the clock, for goodness sake. My opponent's down to 5:25, so you've both got plenty of time, right? But what I need to remember is there are times in chess when you just have to go, I'm doing nothing, mate, right? I'm just going to squeeze my pawns up or something like that, yeah? I'm just going to add an extra dose of bastard on top of your pizza topping. That's what you need, yeah? A shot of extra bastard, right? And I blew it. I had the chance to beat somebody rated almost 1700, and I just blew it after some very, very good play. And that is a habit that I know that I need to break. So that's it. That's the lesson. Hope you've picked up one or two things from that as well. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to Chess Bootcamp if you haven't subscribed. I'll see you soon.